Good morning again, Agri-learners. Today, we will be talking about 5 questions and why, primarily on the subject for agricultural economics. So meron ulit tayong 5 questions na sasagutin and ang subject natin ngayon is agricultural economics and marketing. So let's start off. Number 1 question. It is the difference between a country's exports and imports. Ano kayang tawag doon? Is it balance of trade, balance of payment, current account, or none of the above? Now, in order for us to answer this question, we need to understand a concept in international economics, which is the balance of payment. Now, what is balance payment per se? Balance payment tracks down the transaction of money between countries. So, for example, si Pilipinas nakipag-transact sa Japan, say nagbenta tayo sa kanila ng export na mangga, and si Japan nagbayad sa atin ng pera. We need to track yung money inflow na yon going to the Philippines. And at the same time, kapag naglabas naman tayo ng pera na pambayad sa ibang bansa, we also need to keep track of that. Okay? Now, the balance of payment account is subdivided into 3 major accounts. The first one would be what we call as the current account. So ano yung current account? Dito sa account na to, tinatrack natin yung mga transaction na related to goods and services, and at the same time, yung mga transaction related to income na pumasok sa bansa via our OFWs, and income na lumabas sa bansa via foreigners in our country na nagpapadala rin ng pera sa kanilang bansa. That's the current account. The other type of account in the balance of payment is what we call the capital account. So sa capital account naman, tinatrack natin dito yung flow of capital payments. For example, yung funds na nare-receive natin sa ibang bansa para makapagpatayo tayo dito ng infrastructure is part of the capital account. Since the purpose of that fund is to create capital, in our case, to create infrastructure, then the money that will go into our country through that fund is a capital account, is part of the capital account. The last one would be what we call the financial account. Financial account. So the financial account tracks the inflow and outflow of money in our country that is related now to money investments. So for example for example, dito sa Pilipinas, bumili tayo ng stocks sa US. So naglabas tayo ng pera to buy that stocks from the US. Bakit tayo bumili ng stocks in the first place? Kasi we wanted to take advantage of the interest na makukuha ng stocks na yon if we buy sa US. So that transaction will now be part of the financial account. Okay? Now, how do we record specifically itong 3 types of accounts under the balance of payment? So I'm going to put here, we have current account, we have capital account, and we have financial account. Remember, ang tinatrack natin dito sa balance of payment is the money, okay? Hindi yung tangible na goods and services. So I'm going to give you an example. Sa current account, I say kanina, ang mga transaction na kasama dyan is goods and services, right? Let's say si Philippines, let's say we have imported some dragon fruit from China. So nag-import tayo, nag-angkat tayo ng dragon fruit kay China. What happens is, the Philippines will pay China, di ba? Tapos si China magpapadala sa atin ng dragon fruit. Now, yung payment na ibibigay natin kay China would be a debit sa ating current account. Now, the goods that we will get, okay, is not recorded per se kasi wala namang pumasok na pera sa atin. Now, similarly, if we say si Philippines ay nag-export naman ng mangga dito sa Pilipinas. So, ay si Philippines nag-export, so nagbenta tayo ng mangga kay China. Kapag nag-export tayo ng mangga dyan, si China ay magbibigay sa atin ng pera. Now, in our account, in our balance of payment account, yung payment na marireceive natin kay China will now be a credit, dagdag sa kaperahan ng Pilipinas. So, the fundamental principle that you need to understand here is kung na-receive ni country yung pera, that would be a credit sa kanyang balance of payment. Depende kung anong type of transaction there. So, magpo-fall siya sa current, capital, or financial account. At the same time, kapag lumabas yung pera from that country, it would be a debit sa kanilang balance of payment. So the question is asking, ano ba yung difference between a country's export and import? Saan nyo kaya, anong type of account under the balance of payment are we talking about? Anong type of transaction sa balance of payment are we talking about export and import? Is it current, capital, or financial? The answer, current account. Kasi nga sa current account, dyan natin tinatrack or nire-record yung inflow ng pera, inflow and outflow of pera that is related to the production and selling of goods and services. So kasama dyan yung import natin, and at the same time, yung ating export. But if you can remember earlier, sinabi ko nakasama rin sa current account yung income. Like for example, may mga OFW tayo sa ibang bansa na nagpapadala dito sa Pilipinas. So kapag nagpadala sila ng pera dito sa Pilipinas, that would now be a credit or debit sa ating current account. Correct. That would be a credit now. Bakit siya credit? Kasi naka-receive tayo ng pera. So kapag may foreigner naman tayo dito sa Pilipinas na nagpadala ng pera sa kanilang bansa, that would now be a debit sa ating current account. So current account is composed of two subset. That would be goods and services that is related to import and export, and that would also include yung income received or income that is being sent out from our country. Now this thing, import and export, ang technical term natin dyan is balance of trade. So if we are only considering the import and export, then we are only pertaining to the balance of trade. So kapag mas mataas, for example, yung export mo kaysa sa import, then mayroon kang trade surplus. Kasi mas mataas yung amount of goods and services na pinadala mo sa ibang bansa kaysa doon sa goods and services na pumasok sa iyo. Therefore, mayroon kang additional, so you have more credit to your current account through the balance of trade. Now, the opposite is true if your import is greater naman sa inyong export. Now, in this case, mayroon tayong trade deficit, which means we are buying more goods and services from other countries, so mas mataas yung amount of money that we are giving to other countries as compared to the amount of money that we are receiving from other countries. So given that explanation, what is now the difference between a country's export and imports? The correct answer is balance of trade. Okay? Balance of trade. Balance of payment is a general view on the inflow and outflow of money from one country to another. The current account naman is a part of balance of payment, pero it is consisting of two, income and goods and services. And specifically, yung goods and services, which is also our import and export, is recorded or is being reflected by our balance of trade. Question number 2. Who is the astronomer who encountered the quantity theory of money and prices? Is it John Locke, Copernicus, David Hume, or John Law? Now, if you're a person like me who was once obsessed in reading encyclopedia, alam ko na yung sagot dito na when it comes to the individual who is an astronomer is Copernicus. But let's try to understand ano ba yung mga contribution ng mga to, ng mga thinkers na to sa theory of money. Okay? Now si Copernicus, yun yung tamang sagot. He is the astronomer who not only contributed to the science of astronomy but also to the quantity theory of money. So simulan natin kay Copernicus. So as I've said earlier, Copernicus is well known for his work in astronomy. Pero may contribution siya sa economics. Ano yung contribution niya na yon? He wrote something called the Monete-Curendi ratio or on the minting of coin. So basically, siya yung nagpasimula ng fundamental idea na kapag tumataas ang supply ng pera, bumababa yung value nito. So if you had that question before, napaisip ka siguro, bakit hindi na lang bigyan ng government, for example, if we are printing money, bakit hindi na lang tayo mag-print ng sandamakmak na money and then ipamigay natin sa lahat ng Pilipino? Like, tigo 1 million sila. Wouldn't that solve poverty? Well, in the case of, in the concept of Nicholas Copernicus, sabi niya kapag ginawa natin yon, kapag tumaas yung supply ng money, bababa yung kanyang value. Why? Kasi kapag mas maraming pera ang mga Pilipino, ang mangyayari dyan, yung mga sellers natin, yung mga producers natin, they would increase the price para hindi sila agad-agad maubusan. Para hindi sila agad-agad maubusan ng goods and service na binibenta nila. So susunod din yung price dyan. Therefore, yung pera, yung purchasing value ng pera ay hihina din. So, ang makikita natin dyan is kung bibigyan natin sila, theoretically speaking, kung bibigyan ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas ang mga Pilipino ng tigi 1 milyon, what will happen is magra-rise or mag-shoot up yung presyo ng bilihin. Maaari na yung isang loaf of bread mo would now be priced at 500,000 pesos. Ganun, magkakaroon ng hyperinflation. Who's the second one? We have John Locke. So si John Locke, sino naman si John Locke? Ang pinaka-contribution ni John Locke is quite similar to Copernicus, wherein he argued that the value of money is determined by its quantity in circulation. So kapag mas mataas yung pera na nasa circulation, mas bumababa yung value ng pera because of the explanation that I have provided earlier. At the same time, John Locke provided an insight on the effect of money in the circulation in relationship sa interest rate. So kasama na rin sa idea ni John Locke yung amount of money in the circulation, and interest rate. So ano ba kasi ang relationship ng amount of money in the circulation and interest rate? John Locke argues that if we have more money in the circulation, the interest rate will go down. Bakit? So the explanation here is, since there are more money in the circulation, ang mga tao, hindi na nila kakailanganin ng pera. Kasi nga marami ng pera ang nasa sirkulasyon. Right? So, yung mga banks natin, in order to attract these people to borrow money from them, what will they do sa interest rate? Ibababa nila. That is why if you have more money in the circulation, the interest rate will go down so that the bank will actually attract buyers now, will now attract borrowers, I mean, to borrow money from them. So yun yung isa sa mga fundamental idea ni John Locke. Now we move with David Hume. Sino naman si David Hume? Well, si David Hume ay isa ring thinker and primarily rin on the value of money. Pero ang isa sa pinaka-specific na contribution niya is the idea na kapag may trading between two countries, if there's a trading between two countries and nagkakaroon ng, say, more money yung isang bansa na nakakatanggap ng mas maraming pera, so yung country na the country that is exporting more will receive more money, di ba? Or it will receive more gold. So nababalanse daw yung paglago ng pera niya kasi kapag lumago yung pera na nasa circulation ng country that is exporting more, what happens is that the prices will also go up. So if a country exported more than it imported, makaka-receive siya ng gold, tataas yung kanyang money supply. And kapag tumaas yung kanyang money supply, tataas rin yung presyo ng goods and services doon sa bansa na yun. Eventually, what will happen, kapag tumaas yung presyo ng bilihin niya doon sa bansa na yun, bababa yung kanyang export. Bakit? Kasi tataas dahil nga tumaas yung presyo, dahil tumaas yung presyo ng bilihin sa bansa niya, hindi na siya ganun ka-attractive sa ibang mga bansa na mag-export sa kanya. Therefore, nagkakaroon ng self-correct or let's say a balancing effect. So yun is sa mga idea ni David Hume. Also, David Hume conceptualizes the idea na when it comes to money supply, iba yung effect niya in the short term and in the long term. Sabi niya, ang idea niya is in the short term, kapag nag-increase yung money, it could stimulate economic activity. So hindi daw agad-agad tataas yung presyo ng bilihin, but rather it would make people wealthier and it would stimulate or kumbaga ibuboost niya yung economic activity which is yung buying and selling. However, in the long run, ang effect ng more money in the circulation is higher prices. So yan si David Hume. Ulitin ko lang, ano yung idea ni David Hume when it comes to international trade imbalances? Ang sabi niya, it would self-correct. Bakit? Kasi kung si country A, let's say si country A is exporting a lot, nag-e-export siya ng maraming goods and services, so mataas ang kanyang export, nakaka-receive din siya ng more. So he is also receiving more money. Okay? Now, if this country is receiving more money, dahil nga more money in the circulation would result to inflation, what happens is more money, more higher prices din. So kapag tumaas yung prices ng bilihin doon, it would result to less export. Why? Because of that inflation. Dahil mas mahal na yung goods and service na binibenta doon sa bansa na yon, less attractive na siya sa mga other countries na kumuha ng produkto sa kanya. Para lang malinaw kasi I think hindi malinaw yung first na concept na inintroduce ko na in-explain ko kanina ni David Hume. The last one in the choices there would be John Law. Sino ba si John Law? Si John Law is isang thinker. Naniniwala siya na yung pera daw dapat more flexible and hindi lang siya nakatay strictly doon sa value ng gold or silver. Remember, during this time, forgot to mention, during this time, yung value ng pera is nakadikit doon sa value ng gold na nandun sa bansa. So may tangible backup, kumbaga, yung value ng pera mo. It means if you have a coin or a money, pwede kang pumunta sa bangko, pwede mong ipalit yung money na yon sa gold, sa gold na naka-store sa bansa mo. So si John Doe sabi niya, dapat hindi lang gold yung basehan ng value ng pera natin. Dapat yung binibigay na money ng mga bangko can also be backed up by assets like land, or it can also be backed up by businesses. So parang dyan na yung fundamental, dyan na umuusbong yung concept natin ng fiat money, which is basically a money that is not backed up by any tangible asset, but rather it is backed up by the trust of people in the government. So anong ginawa ni John Law? Ang ginawa ni John Law sa France is that gumawa siya ng isang uh, negosyo, gumawa siya ng isang negosyo sa France na nag-i-issue ng pera. So what happens is, kumbaga, yung mga tao, bibili sila ngayon ng stocks doon sa negosyo na ginawa ni John Law, doon sa negosyo na ginawa ni John Law. So bibili sila ng stocks doon. So si John Law mag-i-issue ng pera sa kanila. So initially, very successful. Maraming tao nakitaan ng potential yung enterprise na kanyang ginagawa. So marami yung bumibili ng stocks doon sa company niya. So anong ginawa ni John Law nung marami yung bumibili ng stocks sa company niya? Print lang siya ng print ng pera. Eventually, what happened is yung business na yon ay hindi niya nagawa kung ano yung purpose niya. Hindi siya naging profitable. And nung nakita ng mga tao na hindi siya profitable, they started withdrawing yung mga stocks na yon, and it created a bubble kung saan nawasak yung value of money. Kasi yung value of money na nirelease ni John Law is attributed doon sa business niya. Nung nalugi yung business niya, kasabay na bumaba yung value ng pera. So same is true, yun din yung danger ng ating fiat money. For example, kasi the money that is in our circulation is connected. The value of that is connected to the trust that we have in the government na maayos yung ekonomiya natin, that the government is actually doing its best to give us more value na hindi tayo nababaon sa utang. However, kapag napansin na, for example, ng mga Pilipino na baon na tayo sa utang and magko-collapse na yung economy natin, what will happen, ang possible cause niyan is magkakaroon ng hyperinflation. Kasi sira na yung fundamental na trust natin sa government, and that would cost our money to lose value. Okay? Let's now move forward with this question. Sabi niya dito, it formalizes the relationship between price and quantity consumers are willing to buy at those prices. So when we're talking about consumers, that's the first question that I will ask you. When we're talking about consumers, are we talking about supply or demand? Kung consumers yung pinag-uusapan natin, supply ba yan or demand? So dahil consumers, they are the one who is buying, then this is related to demand. Tama? Therefore, kung related yan sa demand, among all of the choices, automatic, makakancel na yung law of supply and supply. So we are only left now with two choices, the demand and the law of demand. So ano pa kasi yung law of demand? Law of demand is basically a law that states a model, a concept that states na kapag bumababa yung price daw ng produkto, tumataas yung quantity demanded or yung gustong bilhin ng mga buyers or consumers natin, and vice versa. Kapag naman tumataas ang presyo, bumababa yung quantity demanded. So graphically speaking, it will look like this. So on the y-axis, you have price. So if we can see, as the price is going up, the quantity demanded on the x-axis is going down. When the price is going down, the quantity demanded in the x-axis is going up. Now let's analyze the question. Sabi niya dito, the relationship, it formalizes or defines the relationship between price and quantity demanded. So kung ang dinidescribe niya is yung relationship, ang tinitignan ba natin is yung demand or yung law of demand? Diba? Ang demand is basically how much buyers are willing to buy at a specific price. That's demand. Ilan yung quantity na gusto nilang bilhin every time na nagbabago yung presyo. But the law of demand is the one that is defining the relationship between the price and quantity demanded. Therefore, the correct answer here is the law of demand. Next question. This is the type of pricing that is usually used by wholesalers, and it is a pricing agreement that is negotiated with the buyer. Yan ba ay extinction pricing, penetration pricing, preemptive pricing, or formula pricing? Ano daw kaya yung tawag dun sa pricing strategy kung saan the pricing agreement is being talked over or negotiated between the buyer and the seller? Tignan muna natin yung all of the choices there. Magsimula tayo sa extinction pricing. Ano ang extinction pricing? Extinction pricing is when you have a company na nasa market na, ang gagawin nila, ibababa nila ng sobrang pagkabababa yung presyo ng kanilang goods and services para yung mga maliliit na negosyo that is the same with the business that they are doing will now discontinue yung kanilang production. So dahil yung mga maliliit na negosyo na to, they are in weak financial conditions, hindi nila kayang ibaba yung presyo nila to compete with this company. So extinction pricing is the company will lower its price so low that those organizations or businesses na hindi kayang ibaba yung presyo nila on that particular level, they will go bankrupt. So they will go extinct, such is the term extinction pricing. Ano ang pagkakaiba niya sa preemptive pricing naman? Kapag sinabi natin na yung pricing strategy is preemptive, you are with the word pre, no, parang prevention. Ikaw na negosyo, nasa market ka na, ang gagawin mo, ibababa mo yung presyo ng bilihin mo para hindi magkaroon ng opportunity yung other tao or businesses na pumasok on that same negosyo. So you are preventing them from entering the competition by lowering your prices. Yun yung preemptive. So different siya sa extinction. Kasi ang extinction, ang purpose niya, you kill the companies in weak financial condition. So kumbaga, nandun na sa'yo, kakompetensya mo na siya. Nakakompetensya mo na yung company na yon sa extinction pricing. And ang gagawin mo lang, ibababa mo ng sobra yung price ng goods and services mo para maalis sila, mawala na sila sa competition. Ang preemptive pricing, we are preventing them from entering the market. We are preventing potential companies from entering the market by lowering the prices of our goods and services. Ano naman ang penetration pricing? Diba? Penetration pricing yung isang choice doon. Penetration pricing is simply a pricing strategy kung saan ibababa natin yung price initially para makapasok tayo sa market or para maka-attract tayo ng buyers. And then later on, unti-unti natin siyang itataas. So the purpose of lowering the price is to penetrate the market, to attract buyers to buy from us, and then later on, ibabalik natin dun sa price na sinet ng company natin. That's penetration pricing. Now, what is formula pricing? Ang formula pricing, via its term, is set through a use of formula. So sino yung nagsiset ng formula na yan? It is set between the negotiation between the buyer and the seller. So for example, Si producer ay nagbebenta ng sayote. Ngayon, may buyer na lumapit sa kanya. Sabi niya, "Oh, bibilhin ko na yung 1 tonelada na sayote mo." Sabi niya. Sabi ni producer, "Oh, wait lang, meron pa akong another na tonela. Ay, bibilhin ko ng isang tonel yung sayote mo, yung bibilhin ko yung 1 tonelada na sayote mo worth say 50 pesos per kilo." O ngayon, sasabihin ni producer, makikinegotiate siya, sasabihin niya, "Pwede ba ang 60 pesos per kilo na lang? O, meron pa akong 1 tonelada dito, baka gusto mo namang bilhin." O, sasabihin ngayon ni buyer, "O sige, bibilhin ko yan ng 60 pesos per kilo, pero yung another na 1 ton na ino-offer mo sa akin, dapat bibilhin ko na lang siya ng 45 pesos per kilo." So something like that. So we create now a formula between the agreement of the buyer and the seller. So the correct answer here is formula pricing. And mind you, formula pricing is used, okay? Formula pricing is used specifically for hindi naman specifically, but used mostly by wholesalers. Last question. What do you call the payment that is made by a borrower to a lender? Would that be interest, principal, debt, or debt service? Now, what is being asked in the question? Ano yung tinatanong sa question? The payment. So, ano daw yung payment made by the umutang to the lender? Therefore, letter C now, which is debt, which is utang, is not already the answer kasi yung utang is not a payment. Utang nga siya, di ba? So, it is an obligation to pay something. So, letter C is now cancelled. Okay? Letter C is not the correct answer anymore. Now, we only left with interest, principal, and debt service. Ano ba kasi ang binabayaran natin kapag umuutang tayo? There are two things na binabayaran natin kapag umuutang tayo. Unang-una, binabayaran natin yung principal. Yung principal is the actual amount na hiniram natin. So for example, umutang ka ng 100,000 pesos, yung 100,000 pesos, yun yung principal amount na kailangan nating bayaran. Pero on top of that, mayroon kang interest. Yung interest, yan yung, kumbaga parang, yung interest, yan yung cost ng pag-utang mo. So sasabihin sa'yo, itong 100,000 na to, mayroon tayong 10% interest. So therefore, kapag ibabalik mo yung 100,000, hindi mo lang babayaran yung principal, but also babayaran mo rin yung interest na 10,000 pesos kung ang interest ay 10%. So the combination of interest and the debt, ang tawag po natin dyan ay debt service. So the payment that the borrower is actually sending to the lender is called debt service, which is the combination of our principal and interest. Klaro?